It feels good to be back. What's going on, guys? I missed you fuckers. How have you been? First stream in about 10 or 11 days, I believe. I've been out of town on a wonderful Hawaiian vacation with my family and been missing on YouTube for over a week now, almost going on 2 weeks if I didn't come up here and do this stream today. But we got a lot to catch up on, and I mean a lot to catch up on. So we're going to do some shooting the shit here first, some pleasantries, let you guys know the video schedule for the next couple of days, and let you know what's on tap for this weekend as well, because not only are we going to discuss and unpack the Vince McMahon scandal shit and all the latest going on there, today, we have got a ridiculously loaded podcast on Saturday, which is kind of why I split this Vince McMahon stuff off into its separate video, because if we got into this on Saturday for the Winged Eagle, it would be a 12-hour stream, because there's a lot of news, and some big news that dropped today with WWE, at least for Raw on July 18th. Beginning on July 18th, WWE Raw will have a TV 14 rating. TV PG era is over. You know, maybe WWE's doing something to kind of spice up the content. Not sure if this will affect SmackDown as well, but SmackDown's on Fox. They might have different standards and practices, but at least for Raw, they're going to be going back to TV 14 beginning this Monday. So we will see how that changes the product. I believe it's not going to change it at all. All I think it means is we're going to see a little bit more TNA, and maybe we'll hear the word shit 2 times every Monday. Looking forward to that. In the end, though, you can't change shitty booking, whether you can say the word shit or not, or whether you can bleed a little or not. None of that's really going to change the creative ineptness that exists in WWE, but at least maybe it'll tone down or maybe curve off the I don't know, the cheesiness and corniness of a lot of their just dumb angles and stuff. So we'll see. I have no real dog in that fight. Don't really care if it's PG or 14. I don't think that's the problem with the product at all. So we'll see if it changes and how it affects everything moving forward. But interesting timing, too, them doing this with Vince McMahon in the midst of this pretty damning scandal that, as we get into it here, to be clear, I don't know how he's going to survive this. I would be incredibly shocked if he is not forced out or resigns at this point. I know there's others that have differing opinions. We'll look at that and discuss that later. But based on just what we know so far and the more shit that's probably going to be uncovered, I don't understand how this is survivable. I don't understand how this is survivable and how WWE can keep him on being a liability like that with a couple of TV deals coming up next year and advertisers and shit like that. There's going to be a point where Vince McMahon being the CEO could cost the company money, and that's when that could pose some big problems. And based on everything that's going on now, I think the end has finally come for the old man, and we will talk about that here. But first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody for being here. I know it's weird. It's a Thursday afternoon, middle of the day, early evening if you're on the East Coast. Thanks a lot for being here, and thank you for all the well wishes on social media and on YouTube about my vacation and my absence and all that kind of stuff. It was really nice to hear all that, and I'm just really, really happy to be back now. So let me just cruise over here to the chat and say hi. Don't look like any supers are in yet, but we got Tatanani and Stop the Cap, Sam Rodrigo, How Wheezy is in the house, Michael Johan, Ben is here, K-Fab, Barry is in the house. Barry, I also met up with in Hawaii while I was there. Barry lives on Kauai, the island that I visited, and we met up, I believe, what was it, Barry? Sunday. He came down, and we hung out, had some lunch. It was great. Second time meeting Barry, and that was a lot of fun. Hey, yo, what do you think of them not doing SummerSlam in August? First time ever. I know. Well, it's at the very, very, very tail end of July. So I can live with it since it's July 30th. Maybe that was just the better day to do it. If you do it the next Saturday, the first week of August, maybe there was a conflicting thing there. Maybe there's something else going on, UFC or whatever the fuck else, All Out, I don't know. Whatever the reason is, they set this date, maybe because of their future travel plans or what they have going on after that, no idea. I prefer SummerSlam in August. We've had SummerSlam, I believe, on August 3rd. I want to say SummerSlam 97 was August 3rd. I want to say. So that's pretty early as well. So this is only 4 days before that. I'd prefer it be in August. July is weird, but as long as it doesn't start getting closer in July, like we do mid-July, early July, nah, let's keep it in August or super late July if it was up to me. Good to see you as well. Joseph and Robert and David Brown in the house. Always happy to see you. Ernie Garcia is here. Lowell, Big Justin, Quan Webster. Ernie, did I get you? I think I did. Evan, we got Chris Morin, Deshaun Robinson in the house as well. Ronnie is here. I got all sorts of friends. Junior Jackson, Evan Neal, Atomic Cody, Angie is here. Red Raven, Stephen Harris, Chris Cray. Who else we got in here? Al Ramos is here as well, transferring heat. Yachiro, Joe Compton. We got a lot of y'all. And I got a super chat rolling in from Deshaun. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for that $5. Welcome, Greg. Welcome back, Greg. I hope you had fun and very deserved vacay. Let's see if Raw can out horny splashy paint 2.0, right? Because NXT has got a lot of that horniness going on too. But, in the end, does that make the product any better? Maybe a little, but not really in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion, in my, mid-40s opinion. In my 20s, I might have a different opinion. But my opinion, it really does not matter much. But yeah, NXT is at least trying to go in that direction because sex does sell. Even in today's day and age, you put some tits on TV, people are going to tune in. It's just the way it is. So I can kind of understand them doing that just to attract viewers. A big portion of the wrestling audience are males, 18 to 34. No brainer, right? It's how they got so many ratings in the Attitude Era. I went to a lot of shows in the Attitude Era, Raws, SmackDowns, pay-per-views. The biggest pops of the night were the bikini contests and fucking Terry Runnels and shit. Like, fans were crazy. So going back to that to get some more eyeballs on your product, probably a smart move. George Morris, good to see you, man. Appreciate the 5 from you. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? And how is Bub? What is the future of Bruce Pritchard? Podcast has not had a new episode in 2 months. How was Hawaii? Be safe. I was not aware that there's a 2-month absence with Bruce, but I did listen to a little bit of Bruce and Conrad, some old episodes when I was on the plane flying to Hawaii, some previously downloaded shit I had already had on YouTube from like my last trip. And I was listening to them, and I did think about that. I'm like, I wonder what the latest. I haven't listened to Something to Wrestle in I don't know how long. And I was like, I wonder if he's even doing any. I know he tried to keep the podcast going when he was hired back by WWE, but now this dude is the head of creative, and he's the head of talent relations. He's probably wearing a few more hats now that Vince is kind of off to the side, sort of. So how the hell is he doing this podcast with his plate as full as it is? Plus you got to remember he's a little bit older now. These things add up, the pressure, and how much you work. I would not want Bruce's 2 jobs at the age that he is in if I was him. I just think that would put me into an early grave and stress me the fuck out. It's such a stressful environment and job, and working for that maniac madman and all the things you got to do on a day-to-day basis, and you still got to get up with Conrad once, twice a week or whatever it is to do a podcast. I would not be surprised at all if that podcast is no more. But Bruce seems to find the time to always get shit done. So we'll see. Not sure. But thank you for all of the well wishes. Luckily, my cats did just fine while I was gone. We had somebody in the house, and they were fed, and Bub was given his medicine, and they both survived, and they were both happy to see me. So all is good here at the Casa, at the Podcastle, and the 2 cats are doing great. Well, anyway, the Kita Lions. Oh yeah, what was the other one? Yam Yam Bigelow or something. I did think all of those names were pretty funny. But Nikita is really not my type, but I can see why she's others. Anywho, let's get into some stuff. Before we jump into Vince, it should be known that I'm planning on being here 4 out of the next 5 days. We're going to stream today. We're going to take tomorrow off Friday, but I'll be back here, of course, on Saturday at 3 p.m., same time as this episode here, for the Winged Eagle. And for that episode, we got a ton. I started a document the night I got in my flight on Tuesday night, because I knew there was going to be so much crap to get into. So on Saturday, just to name a few things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the TV 14 rating. We're going to talk about Sasha Banks and Naomi. Sasha specifically, likely now officially gone from WWE, even though WWE has not announced anything yet. We are going to talk about Ric Flair, his last match coming up, his beefs with Chris Jericho recently, and him being added back into the WWE intro. Big E suffered a setback, but is handling it with unimaginable positivity because he's the fucking best. We'll talk about Bayley returning. Also, going to talk about the new A&E bios. The Legends biography and Rivals both kicked off. The Legends series just started season 2. I watched half of The Undertaker so far, and I also watched the Rivals episode of Brett and Sean. So we'll talk about those on Saturday as well, along with Santana and Ortiz not getting along. We got a lot of Dynamite to catch up on. I've missed the last 2 Dynamite episodes. I haven't even seen Wardlow win the TNT title yet, and I know he had a match with Orange Cassidy last night, so I've got a lot to catch up on there, which we will talk about. Also, new tag team champions crowned last night with Swerve Scott and Keith Lee. Or Swerve Strickland, and Keith Lee. Plus, we've got Raw stuff to talk about. Dolph Ziggler's all of a sudden back. theories running around with that briefcase. TV 14 coming up. We got SummerSlam around the corner. Lots to catch up on Saturday. So just keep that in mind for Saturday. Then on Sunday, back to the watch-alongs. I think it's going to be 3 or 4 weeks by the time I get here Sunday, since we did our last one in June. And this Sunday, we're going to do SummerSlam 1992. We're going to watch it together. 30-year anniversary of that show coming up, so I thought that would be perfect. And I even have the link for you in the description. So just scroll down a bit, check the description, and you'll see the link to Sunday's watch-along down there. And then I will go ahead and plan on it. I'll be here Monday as well. We're going to do a Raw review too. Let's go hard since I've been back from vacation and try to catch up on as much stuff as we can. So we got today, we got Saturday for the Winged Eagle, Sunday for the watch along, and then Monday night for a Raw review. So that's 4 out of the next 5 days. You get my bald ass. So get ready for it. Let's start the Vince discussion here. So a lot has happened since I've been gone and on vacation. I believe it would have been, I want to say July 8th, so that was probably last Friday, if I'm not mistaken, when the latest details and even more damning information coming out in another Wall Street Journal report. We've already known about the previous $3 million payment to that paralegal. That was the story that broke, that the board was investigating. Well, now the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Vince McMahon has paid over $12 million of his own money over the past 16 years to 4, count them, different women. And all of these women signed NDAs, and these were all hush money payments to silence them for the sexual relationship that they had or the sexual relationship that was attempted. So this brings the total of women up to 4 now. And the biggest one, I guess, bombshell, or the biggest story in this entire report is the one pretty massive payment that was made. This report from the Wall Street Journal claims that a $7.5 million pact was paid to a former talent who worked for the company in 2005, who was coerced into giving Vince McMahon oral sex, and then was demoted when further sexual advances were denied. $7.5 million. Now, this wasn't paid all the way back then. This was paid recently. This former talent and her attorney approached Vince McMahon in 2018 and negotiated a deal in return for her silence. And she also signed, of course, an NDA. So that's the big one. Now, there's a couple other ones as well that we're going to talk about in a minute, but $7.5 million. And her attorney, they were approached in 2018, so this was just a few years ago, that they decided they could probably get a few bucks out of Vince, and they negotiated this deal to keep her quiet. Now, we are not discussing who this person is. We're not fucking doing that, so please just try to be cool in the chat. It's really not important who it is. If you really, really think about it, you can kind of narrow it down, but we don't know for sure anything. So it would be irresponsible and a really shitty thing to do, to sit here and say someone's name or talk about someone who had nothing at all to do with this and would want nothing at all to do with this. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're recklessly tweeting and shit like that. It's really not important. That's not the point here. The point is what Vince McMahon did and all of this money that he's paid out in these hush money payments. Now, that's the big one. That one is to a former talent, which means this is a person on TV. You're talking about coercion here. You're talking about demotions, and a clear abuse of power when you can affect someone's job based on an inappropriate relationship you had with them. So all this stuff is pretty damning. So that's $7.5 million just to that piece of talent alone. There's also a WWE contractor who provided or presented the board with unsolicited nude photos around 2008, or presented the company around 2008. Vince McMahon agreed to pay this person $1 million and also sign an NDA to keep her quiet as well. So this is a contractor who worked for the company, who apparently received from some nude photos from Vince, came forward, they paid her off to shut her up, and it all went away. There's also an incident in 2006 where a manager, not an on-screen manager, but basically a WWE employee who worked for the company for 10 years, when Vince attempted a sexual relationship with her, they also paid her $1 million to keep quiet. So that brings it to 4. That is the 10-year-long employee that Vince attempted a sexual relationship with, the contractor who received unsolicited nude photos from Vince, of course, the $3 million payment to the paralegal that we already knew, and the big one, the $7.5 million hush money payment back in 2018 to shut up the person that he had the relationship with in 2005. We could dig even more into that, but that's the basics here. I mean, this is now 6 days old. I was out of town and on vacation last week when all this was going down, so you guys have read a lot. You guys have listened to a lot of podcasts about this, I'm sure, and you know a lot of the, maybe more intricate details. This is kind of just the basics here of what's going on and the latest Wall Street Journal bombshell report. So that's four women, $12.5 million over the course of the last 16 years to keep them quiet, and that's only what we know so far. And that's one thing you got to keep in mind, because as we're going to talk about here later, at what point does this become enough? I mean, at what point do you want to stop the bleeding? Does Vince want to hang on and fight for everything? Because if he were to resign, I don't know if that would essentially end the investigations, or if they were going to keep digging regardless if he's resigned or not to find out every single thing that he's done or every single shady payment he has made. You know what I mean? So at what point is this just going to affect WWE to where we got to stop the bad press? You have to resign, because at what point does the board just get fed up? Like, enough is enough. I mean, there has been so many people worth a lot more money than Vince McMahon who have held CEO positions in companies that have had to resign for a fuck of a lot less than what Vince McMahon has done here. So that's why I said at the opening of the podcast here is that in my heart of hearts, my instinct tells me he cannot survive this. You can say all day long, well, he's Vince McMahon and the rules don't apply to him. The fucking hell they don't. When you're talking about coercion, NDAs, and abuse of power, demotions, promotions, etc., that is all like a governance issue. This is a company. This is a publicly traded company. They absolutely can force him out. If you think they can't, you don't know what you're talking about. And this is different than last time when Vince was fighting for his legal life, when the federal government was coming after him. And that's what a lot of, I think, people also conflate and get confused in this situation where they're like innocent until proven guilty. He's not being accused of a crime. Nothing of this is really going to amount to anything criminal for Vince. This is a governance issue in his own company where he's the sitting CEO, and this is coercion. These are NDAs. These are hush money payments. Does not matter if it's his own money or not. It's another, well, it's his own money. It doesn't matter. Yes, it does, because he's the CEO. He has signed an employment agreement which clearly states that these are the things that are off limits, and these are the things that can get you forced out or voted out from your own position. He can be booted out. Before the company went public, he could fuck every referee he wanted. It wouldn't matter. But now it's a completely different story. And these are the things that I think many people at the end of the day always knew about Vince McMahon. Fightful Select had a great detailed article on a lot of the backstage reaction to Vince McMahon's scandal, and how a lot of people said it was kind of understood in the company that he's, just kind of a shady fucker, and he probably gets his jollies a lot with a lot of women around him. Linda McMahon has always been aware of this. Vince McMahon has openly admitted to cheating on her many times. They have a marriage of convenience. I don't think this is anything that she's really surprised about, or even probably already knew about, for that matter. But when it comes to Vince and the accountability that he has and he needs to have, he really, really needs to go. There's no way he can stick around in my mind after this. And it's going to be really interesting to see how hard he's really going to fight, because based on all of the backstage reaction that we've read from the various reports, he's still Vince McMahon. As a matter of fact, the one report that Fightful Select discussed about Vince coming back the night that he appeared on SmackDown for the first time after the scandal, and he came back through the curtain at Gorilla and just said, fuck him. That's Vince. That's Vince McMahon. And you got to understand, he's a 76-year-old man. He's in his own bubble. He's completely oblivious and unaware about the world around him and outside of his WWE Universe bubble. So I can understand that Vince McMahon in his mind thinks this isn't a big deal. But I would hope that his lawyers, the people around him, McDivitt, and everybody else who fucking can think for themselves, say, dude, you're in a lot of hot water here. You're in a world of shit, and rein them back in and really explain things that unless you want your company to lose a substantial amount of money, the stock price, I believe, is kind of stabled out. It was dropping a little bit, I think, but the whole market sucks anyway right now. But in a year, I believe, or maybe it's the end of next year, it's coming up soon, those Fox and USA deals. And they got $1 billion, I believe, from Fox. So when those deals come up, having him as the CEO could affect those deals. Could also affect advertisers. Could also affect talent wanting to come there. If you're a big free agent and you got to decide which company to go to, it's not like 5 years ago when there's no AEW. You got a choice now. You got another billionaire out there with a bunch of money too. So I would be like, I'm going to stay away from them for a few years. WWE's, they're in turmoil right now. I'm going to go sign with the company that seems to have everything together, at least for the moment. When shit stabilizes in WWE, when Vince goes away or resigns or whatever, and a new, they install a new leadership at the top, then maybe I'll sign with them. But that could affect a lot of stuff. So, in that way, Vince really is a liability, and his presence could cost his company money, and that's another reason why he absolutely can be removed, and I still believe should. Now, let's not forget our old pal Johnny Ace. Hi, Vince. You're looking very vascular. Is also being investigated here. His name is all over these articles as well. Now, he's being investigated for a sexual relationship not only with the same paralegal that, of course, we heard about with Vince, but they're also investigating a $1.5 million NDA in 2012 involving misconduct claims against Johnny Ace. And if you do the math here, this is right around the same time of his demotion. Remember, he was a big part of TV and he was a big part of backstage, and then all of a sudden he was kind of gone for a while. Sounds like this could be connected. Maybe not, but he was gone for a long time. It took him till when was Johnny Ace reinstalled as head of talent relations? I believe it was just in the last year or two. So that timing there with that $1.5 million NDA. So now we're talking a total of 5 or 6 maybe. Half dozen NDAs have been signed between Vince and Johnny Ace collectively. Most people in the company believe Johnny Ace is gone. He's currently on administrative leave, but I don't see any possibility of him returning and how that is even possible. I don't know what this relationship is. It's not my business, but I don't know what his relationship with his wife is. He is married to the Bella Twins' mother, who I do believe battled cancer. Could be wrong about that, but I thought that was the case. So that's gross. And like I said earlier, this could just be the beginning. I mean, it just depends on these investigations. There's a bunch of different firms. I think the total's up to 9 or 10 now. Law firms independently investigating WWE for some shit. And everything they start digging up on Vince McMahon, this is only what they've found so far. This is only the obvious shit that's on the surface. What happens when you dig a little bit deeper? We all know, we've all heard the name, Rita Chatterton, who accused Vince of raping her in 1986. Unfortunately, she didn't come forward until the 90s, like on the Geraldo show. And the statute of limitations on rape had expired, and there was no charges ever brought on Vince. I've really never believed Vince to be a rapist. I mean, it's the only time we've heard that. Innocent until proven guilty, for sure. I believe Vince is a powerful man who abuses that power and is able to coerce sex out of various women. He's somebody, I always thought about the same thing about Kobe Bryant. I'm like, I don't think any of these people need to rape anybody, you know what I mean? Unless they're just sick, fucked up people. Kobe Bryant was Kobe Bryant. I'm Kobe. Women should just want me. Vince McMahon probably feels the same way. And I never thought he would be someone to physically force a woman on him. And I know that might be a difficult subject to even discuss here, but that was the only real serious charge that came on Vince, other than that, I believe that massage parlor worker, the masseuse, I should say massage parlor, masseuse in Florida, that said Vince maybe got a little frisky with her. So I firmly believe Vince is a sick, dirty, perverted, entitled fuck that believes he can do these things. He's a pussy grabber. The guy used to run this country, had a similar way of thinking. Just go up and do whatever you want to him. Because we're powerful, rich men, and that's what we can do. And that's the way Vince has lived. So how far back will the investigation probe? How far back do they go? Do they keep digging? Is there a real ugly skeleton buried in there that Vince doesn't want to come out? they're eventually going to get to it. I need to resign before that comes out because there's some ugly shit. I wonder if they ever find that briefcase that he supposedly took into the police station to get Jimmy Snuka off those serious charges. And the amount of money that was in there, I wonder if they can find that amount of cash because that was pre-WrestleMania. Vince had bought the company, but I think he only owned it for about a year at that point. So coming up with any sort of substantial amount of money back in those days when Vince had just bought the company, they were on the verge of bankruptcy before Hogan came in and all of that, that should be pretty easy to trace. It's a big chunk of money. They probably didn't have a whole lot laying around. So who knows what they could dig up. But I think that there's going to be more. This is only 4 of them, and I think there's probably been many, many more. You got to think about how long Vince McMahon has been doing this. And Vince has had good relationships with a lot of women. I mean, he's had good platonic relationships with everybody, or a lot of the women that he's employed. But there's been some, the gall of Vince McMahon to be this way, to be so sick and dirty, and then just make out, just tongue-kiss Trish on live fucking TV. Like, he just doesn't care. No shame at all in this man. I would be minding my P's and Q's if I had all this dirty laundry that I didn't want uncovered. Instead, he just goes out there and flaunts it. And people say that the best wrestling characters and the best wrestling storylines are ones that plug into real life. The best wrestling characters are the ones that are as close to your real personality as possible. And Vince McMahon, the character on TV, is a hell of a lot like the Vince McMahon person in real life, for sure. So, yeah, it's just fucking crazy. I'm just blown away. It's really surreal that I think we're all right here in the midst of watching the end of Vince McMahon. I truly believe that. I don't know when all this is going to happen. We could get a big announcement tomorrow. We could drag this out another few months. Maybe WWE wants to wait until after SummerSlam, get this next big show out of the way till you got a little bit of break in the fall and kind of some down months there where you can do all of this. But you've got a big show coming up this month, 2 weeks. So maybe they just want SummerSlam to come and go and just get out of that because SummerSlam feels like a very poorly made SummerSlam. The Brock and Roman match just feels forced and thrown out there. John Cena's not a part of this like I thought he would be. There's probably going to be some good matches, and the show will probably still be very good, but it just does not seem, even last year didn't seem that great. The only thing about this SummerSlam that I think could be great is how last year we saw Becky come back, and I was at SummerSlam in Vegas last year, and that was awesome to see Becky come out. I think this year we could get Bayley. So it would be interesting if Bianca Belair lost her title the same way she did last year, with Bayley coming out and beating her, and then that whole saga happening again. Then you just replay what you did with Becky and Bianca, but you do it with Bianca and Bayley. You could. There's a million ways to bring Bayley back, but I think that's one big thing we should look for at SummerSlam is the return of Bayley. So maybe WWE wants to wait until that's over, get through that show. Then Vince, what is he going to do? He's going to sit at home and watch MASH? Watch fucking game shows? I don't even think he could do it. I think he would physically die. It's like if somebody just has a horrible diet their whole life and they just smoke cigarettes and eat bacon all their life until age 90, and then the doctor puts them on a diet of broccoli and they die 3 days later. Vince is so used to living this way of just never not doing anything, working a 12-hour day, then going to work out for 2 hours, and then get 3 hours sleep and then back at it again the next day. To take that away from him, he'd be lost. Well, could you imagine Vince just getting a cart at the grocery store and going in and just buying milk and shit? Like I don't know what he would do. I think he would go out of his mind. Could he be kept on in some way? Could he be hired as the head of creative, which is essentially already his job? God damn, I hope not. That would solve nothing for the product. But WWE seems to have this narrative that the only thing that keeps WWE surviving is the fact that Vince McMahon's in charge. He's the head of everything. WWE needs that to be as successful as they are, and I truly do not believe that at all. I think WWE has grown to be so big, and they're such a global company now that they're going to be fine without Vince McMahon. I argue they're going to be better because I think they're going to have a little bit more organization to their TV. I still think it's going to be booked much the same. You still have Bruce there and a whole bunch of people who think like Vince. But in terms of the crazy old man ripping up the script 10 minutes before the show and rewriting it, hopefully those days are over. And you can get a little bit more continuity with your product. And we can start to see, if Vince McMahon goes away tomorrow, the product is not going to be better on Monday. This is going to take a couple of years, for them to find their niche, find their groove. They might have some moving pieces and a revolving door at the top of creative here and there. We see that in every promotion. At WCW, I don't know how many different people during their run had the pencil. I'd say 11, something like that. So you could see a lot of changes internally, but they're going to be a hell of a lot more stable than WCW was. And Vince McMahon does not bring to the table what he thinks he does in terms of creative. He is grotesquely out of touch to an embarrassing level. SmackDown, which I did not watch last week and won't, seemed to be getting some of the worst reviews I've ever seen on a SmackDown. I mean, the very definition of a skippable show. I haven't watched SmackDown in like 3 weeks. I haven't watched Raw either, for that matter. I mean, I'm to the point now, I have a wrestling YouTube channel where it's my job. It's my second job to talk about wrestling, and I can still talk about Raw and SmackDown just fine by just watching the YouTube clips. I need nothing else. I don't need the other hour and 40 minutes of filler. Just give me 20 minutes of highlights, and I'm good. I get it. You don't have to be goddamn Einstein to understand WWE's storylines and matches and shit. So if Vince goes, the WWE will be fine. They will be fine. And I think the fans might eventually, in time, slowly but surely, hope to start seeing a little bit better of a product or something that just seems to be a little bit more together. And they better, man, because, there is another competitor out there right now. And right now, like I was watching those A&E biography, the new season, the biography Legends last night and the Rivals. And when I'm watching that, we're going to talk about those on Saturday, but when I'm watching that, I'm like, this is the type of content that I like from WWE. This is the best content they produce, is their docs, their 24s, their A&E shit, their 365s, their Icons docs. They have no equal when it comes to that. But their live product, their on-screen storylines and TV shows are shit. But when they talk about and document the past, that's the type of content from WWE I prefer. I watch that shit all day long. But watching SmackDown and Raw, I'd rather dig my brain out with a spoon out of my ear and fucking have to deal with that shit. So I think Vince leaving could have a positive effect on the product if he does resign. But that's just from a creative standpoint. Like we talked about, you got TV deals coming up. You can have talent being hesitant to re-sign when there's so much, just disorientation at the top and everything just seems to be a dumpster fire. I would probably stay away from them. So I think for the good of Vince's company, if he really cares about his company, the future of his company, the future for the stockholders and the overall just success moving forward, he should back away because he is the biggest black eye in this company. I mean, this company has already got a ton of black eyes. They've had so much bad press over the years, and they've worked hard to repair that image a lot in the media and stuff. So by Vince holding on and letting the investigations uncover more and more stuff, all you're doing is essentially undoing all the good work you did by trying to change the public's opinion of you to where everybody doesn't view WWE as just a dirty, corrupt company anymore. You kind of come back from that to where, people investing in the company, you got stockholders, stock price is doing pretty well overall throughout its history. And then this happens, and you, just because of ego or just because of your stubbornness, and Vince is very stubborn, you're going to lay all that on the line just because of your own crazy personality. And that's where I think a lot of fans kind of get confused. It's not really up to Vince. They think, well, he's not going to leave. I mean, I guess maybe our last presidency showed people that you can really try to do anything, but Trump, everybody knew he was going to lose. People before the election said what he's going to do is come out and say he won and refuse to leave. Exactly what he did. I'm not leaving. Not fucking leaving. And so Vince doing that, he can, but if he wants to, then he wants to make that big of a scene and make that big of a deal about it. But if he does that, that's only going to make his company look worse. That's only going to put a lot more bad press on you. And that's only, like I said earlier, going to cost you potential dollars in the future. And I don't know why Vince would want to do that for a company that he worked so hard to build. He bought that company from his dad 40 years ago in 1982, and it was on the verge of bankruptcy. WrestleMania would not come around for another 3 years. When he says he's a self-made billionaire, he really is. So, I mean, why throw all that away just because you couldn't keep your shit in your pants? No pants in hell. I think that the old man's time is up. Now, WWE did issue a statement after this second report came out, which says, and I quote, "The Wall Street Journal has published a secondary story with expanded details on its initial WWE report last month. We want to reiterate that we and our board of directors take these allegations seriously. We've been cooperating fully with the investigation led by our board of directors and will continue to do so until its conclusion. Please note that upon its conclusion, WWE leadership will make itself available to answer any questions you may have." I got a couple if I was a WWE employee. Now, there's a couple of other news tidbits here. There's also a board member named Connor Schell. He resigned last Wednesday, 2 days. He resigned a few weeks ago, back in June, a few days before the Wall Street Journal story broke. He claims that it's not because of the investigation, but like a lot of things here, like that Johnny Ace stuff too, the timing is really interesting in a lot of this stuff. So maybe he knew something was up or whatever, and he got out of there. Like I said, Fightful Select had a lot of articles on the backstage reaction. A lot of staff, disgusted. A lot of WWE staff, typical Vince type of reactions to it. And, of course, we heard about that report of him just saying, fuck him, when he came back to Gorilla, which is about the most perfect description of Vince McMahon you can have, is that's how oblivious he is to how truly fucked he is. And that's what blows my mind. He doesn't seem to get it. Or if he does, he's just like going to go out in a blaze of glory. If I'm going out, I'm going down swinging type of thing. But he is always so aggressively defiant. And it's so weird what about someone's personality makes them that way. Because Vince, he has a history of just this type of behavior. By the way, he was supposed to be, Netflix was supposed to be dropping the, when I say dropping, they actually still are dropping it, just in a different way. But Netflix was producing the Vince McMahon documentary, which was already done. They're in post-production, about to nail this thing down and finish it and drop it to Netflix. But instead, it has been dropped. Denise Salcedo was the first one to report this, saying that she spoke to a couple of sources at Netflix, and they said that shit's good as gone. So the big documentary that they were going to release on Vince McMahon's life, which I would have loved to have seen, a lot of talent interviews and all that stuff have already happened and already been recorded for that. And that will never see the light of day now. It will be interesting if they rework it and they re-release it in a few years with this ugliness attached to the end of it. I wouldn't mind that, because at least we would see what they had done, but you would assume this documentary was going to be highly praising Vince McMahon. So you've got a lot of interviews with talent saying Vince is a genius and Vince is the best and he's the greatest man ever. And we're never going to see any of that now. But I suppose, they could still do something in the future. Maybe Vince McMahon could be a Dark Side of the Ring episode. The only problem with the Netflix documentary on Vince is that it's done in cooperation with WWE and Vince McMahon. So I don't think Netflix is going to be able to run a hit piece when this is over, or run a self-destruction of Vince McMahon DVD. There's an idea. WWE should release that. The self-destruction of Vince McMahon. That's fucking karma for you right there. So the Netflix shit is out. There was also a biopic reportedly in the works at one point. I thought Bradley Cooper was maybe rumored to play Vince McMahon, somebody else as well. That's obviously not going to happen either. And like I said, the investigations could uncover a whole lot of stuff. They've only gone back to 2005 so far. You think Vince wasn't dirty before then? Luckily for Vince, at least in the 90s, there was a few less women for him to prey on, because they didn't have much of a women's division then. It was just a London Blaze and, a bunch of her friends from Japan, and that was it. So there was really nobody there for him to prey on, other than maybe just WWE female staff that worked in the office or worked in production or worked on the ring crew or worked on the camera crew or anything like that. The influx of female performers in WWE, when they really ramped up the women's division, would come, 96. We all heard the story of how Mark Marrow and Sable got her contract, when Mark Marrow was coming in to sign his contract after leaving WCW, and he brought Sable with him, and Vince fell head over heels for her in the meeting, forgot all about Marrow, still signed him to his deal, but he was fixated on Sable from that moment on because he's a horny fucking pervert. And then you start getting all the other ladies in the WWE. They start coming up, building a women's division, but then you also add other elements to that women's division, like your Tori Wilsons and your Stacy Keeblers and all of that. And Vince, he's probably like a kid in a candy store back then. So we only know back to 2005 so far. Who knows if they'll uncover anything else from the early 2000s, the late 90s, the mid 90s, anything after 1986 too with Rita Chatterton. Who knows? But like I said, it's not none of this is criminal. Chris Jericho, I saw a little snippet. He did a podcast. I think he's overseas right now, or he was. And, he kind of thinks that nothing's really going to come of this. And he said a lot of the same things that I see on social media a lot. Well, he's Vince McMahon. I'm like, Chris, I don't think nobody's getting this. Nobody's understanding the severity of this, I don't think. The idea that Vince McMahon is going to be in complete control of whether or not he keeps his CEO seat or not is just plain wrong. It's not going to be up to him. He's going to be probably recommended something by the board once the investigation finishes, digging up all this ugly dirt. They're going to recommend to him what he should do, and he probably won't, but I think at the end of the day, he's going to realize what a liability he is. He does have people and lawyers that he does trust around him that I'm at least hoping, for sanity's sake, will level with him and just be honest and say, dude, you ain't getting out of this one. You are fucked. 6 ways to Sunday. So resign, bow out now before it gets ugly and you're literally pushed publicly out of your own company that you spent the last 40 years building. That's not the way you want to end it if you're Vince McMahon. Now, based on how dirty he was and stuff, I don't have any sympathy for him at all. If it ends horribly badly for him, then that's karma. That's just the way life worked out. You shouldn't have done these things if you didn't want the truth. Always comes out. If you got dirty, ugly skeletons like this, especially when you're such a public figure like Vince McMahon, it's going to come out, So I want to see how this is going to be handled moving forward and how long it's going to take for any sort of conclusion to happen here. If I'm a talent, if I'm Cody Rhodes, I'm wanting this to be over by the time I get back at the Royal Rumble. I want the new regime in place or Vince staying there. Whatever the end result is, if it results in Vince leaving or not, I believe it's going to result in him leaving. But if it doesn't and he somehow is able to keep his job there, I just hope that's all done by the time my return at the Royal Rumble happens. That's what I'm thinking if I'm Cody. And if I'm any other sort of talent, if I'm somebody in AEW whose contract is coming up and I'm happy in AEW, I would think about going to WWE if they offered me a contract or if I talked to them. But with all this shit going on, maybe I don't want to do that either. So it's probably in WWE's best interest to get him the fuck out of there. And it doesn't give me any joy to say that. I mean, Vince McMahon is going to go down as the greatest and most successful promoter in professional wrestling history. He truly is an icon in that matter. And his company has provided me with an entire lifetime. Literally, I was 5 years old when Vince took over the company. A whole lifetime of entertainment. And I was a big WWE fan, big pro wrestling fan in general, but really enjoyed the WWE product. I always did have admiration for Vince. I didn't agree with everything he did, but for the most part, I always liked Vince because I thought he was really just a crazy type of promoter, and really back in the day when he kind of had all his faculties about him and he wasn't so crazy and out of touch. He's had a lot of bad ideas regardless of what age he was, but I felt a little bit more comfortable with him back in the 90s when he was still at a decent age and he was in his 50s and he just didn't seem so goddamn out there. And he seemed a little more down to earth. When WWE was on the ropes against WCW and stuff, he didn't seem to have that over-the-top personality that he does now, that intimidating walk and the Vince McMahon persona. he didn't seem to have that. He was a little more humble, a little more soft-spoken, but then when WWE started really kicking WWE's ass and then he got into that Vince McMahon character, seemed like he changed as a person a little bit too. I really don't think deep down he did, but it appeared that way to where I think he got even more and more entitled. And he was, like I said, he's in that WWE bubble. He's a billionaire. He does not think he can be held accountable for anything, and he's finding out now, which I like, when these crazy entitled maniacs or these carny motherfuckers find out how the real world works. It's nice, isn't it? So it's going to be a weird day when and if Vince does hand in his resignation, because it's going to be the end of an unbelievable era. It's going to be bittersweet for me because I wish Vince McMahon didn't do these things. I wish he was a little bit less dirty and Vince McMahon could have a nice swan song as well, where he will be, remembered and honored for all of his accomplishments and contributions. I think that's kind of what the Netflix doc was about. I know Vince never wants to go into the Hall of Fame, but you would think that when Vince passes away, there's going to be a lot of stories and documentaries on him, on his life, what he was like. And, now this has kind of got this ugly ending attached to it. But people in wrestling seem to, survive this okay. Ric Flair, he's such a dirty piece of shit. He's got his last match coming up here in a couple of weeks. And, Hulk Hogan, everything, of course we know about him and the shit he did. And, now Vince McMahon, all of these allegations and all of these reports about all this hush money being paid. I think it's going to result in a pretty underwhelming or probably sad ending for Vince and WWE. Like, I just really don't at this point see how he can survive this. And that's why I think we should all just stop and take a minute here and realize that we might literally, as wrestling fans, be within our last few days of Vince McMahon's run at the top of WWE. I thought by the time I got back from Hawaii, he might already be out. He's not. That implies that he's going to hang on and wait till the very last minute or wait until everything is concluded to make a decision or whatever. But I feel like this is it. My instinct, my gut, everything about this tells me that it ain't survivable, So I know I've been talking a lot here without looking at the chat, so we'll do that now. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button for me if you don't mind. And again, thank you very much for being here. I got some super chats to answer. We got a lot of stuff to answer in the chat. I'm sorry for just going on and on. TYFU, where's Charlotte? I believe she's due to be back any time now, and I wouldn't be surprised to see her turn back up at SummerSlam either. Maybe show up there. Doesn't look like there's going to be time for her to show up and book a match, but Andrade is back on TV in AEW, isn't he? So maybe Charlotte's just chilling for the time being. We got no Charlotte or no Bayley right now on TV, or no Sasha Banks. We got 3 out of the 4 horsewomen missing, but 2 might be back, and I think it's going to be the 3 horsewomen moving forward from here. Let's answer some questions and talk to the chat a little bit and see if there's anything more we can discuss here regarding Vince McMahon. Let me just go back up here, though, and knock out these super chats that I missed. We got Spaz Phoenix chiming in with $20. Thank you so much, dude. Go subscribe to Spaz's YouTube channel. He talks about everything over there, TNA and NXT and AEW and WWE. If it's wrestling, he's doing it. Hey, Greg and Kat in chat, if you want something new, next Tuesday, Destiny Wrestling will be streaming some great matches from their archive. That's cool, 7:30 East Coast time. Also, their next show in Mississauga has Angle, Cross, Scarlet, and more. I don't know how to say that. I don't know how to pronounce that. Mississauga. Yeah, looks like sausage. Cool. Thank you for that, Spaz. Go check that out on his channel. If Linda wants revenge for Vince cheating, I'll knock some 73-year-old dusty... Oh, Jesus. Linda McMahon is well aware of this. That's another thing that I thought was funny that I was seeing a lot on social media. Oh, she's going to get everything from Vince. There's no issue between Vince and Linda. This is all totally understood. She has known about Vince's ways for way longer than the investigation has been reporting. And they might even get divorced now, might be like the final straw, but I don't think it's going to be, Vince isn't going to be living in a studio bedroom apartment or studio apartment, in downtown Stamford with a cat, after Linda takes him to the cleaners. It's not going to happen like that. K-Dogs, Keno, appreciate the $5, dude. Welcome home, my good friend. Looks like we had a great trip. Hope all is Looks like you had a great trip. Hope all is well with Bub. Yes, it is. Kevin, thank you so much, dude. Bub survived just fine, and they're both happy to have me back. And I'm happy to be home because that trip was a little bit on the extravagant side. So it's kind of nice to come back to my job, start making money again, and get back to reality and get back to YouTubing because I actually did legitimately miss it. Did I miss anybody else? We've got Chris Miner. Appreciate the $2 from you as well, my friend. Those Vince and Trish segments are more cringe now. Exactly. Especially now that we know what we know. And Vince doing that, knowing that he's already done dirty shit. And he's still okay just flaunting that. Like if that would be like just Trump going around while he's president, grabbing everybody's pussy like on camera. He's a pretty dumb motherfucker, but even he's not dumb enough to do that. But Vince, I think, literally being that guy is just weird. Vince and Linda are swingers. Well, I hope Linda's got some action on the side. I hope she's got a boy toy. She needs it. She needs it. I had a comment I wanted to read and then I lost it. I'm so sorry. Vince will fight to the death. I know, yeah, trust me, he probably will because that's Vince McMahon. But what I think people just cannot seem to process is that they think it's up to him. And it's just not going to be at the end of the day. It's not going to be. Because if it was up to him, then none of those other CEOs that were, kicked out and booted out of their jobs in companies worth much more money than WWE, if they could just decide to stick around, then they all would have. So it's just not like that. This is a publicly traded company. There's different rules, and there's a lot of specific rules when you are the CEO, and abuse of power and coercion and NDAs and all this stuff is just ugly. It's not going to land him in jail, but it is going to land him outside of his company. I firmly believe that, and I'm not wavering from that stance because there's not enough Vince personality to change the rules. You know what I mean? So that's why I believe that once this investigation likely uncovers even more, and Wall Street Journal publishes another report on 4 more women for another $10 million, which I firmly believe exists out there, then at what point does the company and the board say enough is enough? You are now doing damage to the company financially. Stock has fallen. TV deals coming up. Get out of here so we can reestablish and install a new regime so we have negotiating power in the future and the company doesn't lose a butt ton of money because of your stubbornness. Would Vince McMahon really cost his company millions, potentially billions, just because he's stubborn? Actually, I do believe he would, now that I think about it, because Vince is cray. But yeah, he absolutely needs to go. It is time to step away. It is time to leave WWE. It is time to ride off in the sunset. Like I said, a WWE without Vince McMahon is extremely difficult to imagine. But I think it's time we start fucking imagining it. Because, trust me, shit's going to happen. Whether it's in a few days, few weeks, few months, whatever, I can't see any way for this to end well for Vince McMahon. He's putting on a brave face in public. He went to the UFC show with Triple H and Stephanie and Pat McAfee, right? And they're all sitting there looking weird. Vince is looking old. And he's defiant as always. But, I think in the end, all that's going to do is just make him look bad. Remember the interviews that he's done, with Bob Costas where he gets all heated and he acts like a buffoon. And I think that the more he hangs on, the more he fights, the more he has this fuck 'em attitude, the more damage he's going to do to WWE. When if he would just get the hell out of there, WWE will continue to succeed. They're too big not to. They will never go out of business. They are going to be here forever. And they've grown to a size to where their longevity will be, for many, many years to come. They are well staffed and they've got infrastructure in place for the most part to keep that going. Their talent and they're creative, and their TV seems to be what needs the most work. Their legal departments, their marketing departments, their music departments, all that stuff, costume and wardrobe, production, how great all of that stuff is. They're top of the line and top notch and have literally no equal in so many aspects of entertainment except the most important aspect, and that's what you put on TV. They'd rather have the 4K renders and the 3D shit and the crazy entrances and the 9,000 replays and the 20 camera cuts every 5 seconds. To them, that's what makes good TV. When we don't need all that. You know, we need a guy that fans are predisposed to like and a guy or gal that fans are predisposed to hate, and you put them on a collision course. It's that fucking simple. So the fact that they can't seem to just make the simplest things work sometimes in WWE is why I think they will do better when Vince is gone. So I know at this point we're just rambling. I'm just, I'm just kind of soaking in the surrealness of this, that I truly believe in my heart. I'm not reporting this as fact or anything like that. I'm just telling you what I believe. I believe this is the end for Vince McMahon. I'm not saying you're stupid if you don't think it's the end of Vince McMahon. I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen. Not what is going to happen or anything like that. And anybody who thinks differently is dumb. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's what I think. I don't see how he survives this. And that's the most surreal part of this, is that we're about to experience a WWE without Vince McMahon earlier than we thought. Maybe it still takes another year to hammer this shit out. Who knows? But in the end, I believe this is going to end with a resignation. I honestly do. Because I just don't see any way that it can't end that way. It'll be interesting in 20 years to watch or to listen to an Austin Theory podcast after he's retired. What was it like to be the last person to work with Vince McMahon on camera? Which might not even be true, but it's the last kind of storyline he was involved in, right? I mean, at least Vince was still in good graces, or not. At least this hadn't come out yet at WrestleMania, so at least we got the glory of watching what will likely be Vince McMahon's final Stone Cold Stunner be even worse than his first Stone Cold Stunner. Oh, karma's a great thing. There's still part of me that just always will admire Vince, but there's also just a huge more of me that has literally zero sympathy for him. And if he's booted out of his own company, he absolutely deserves it. And I ain't going to be shedding any tears over it, put it that way. I just think it's just a really surreal thought and concept of a WWE without Vince McMahon. And we've heard stories of WWE selling the company in the future. I think all of that is extremely likely, but the more Vince is attached to this, the more that's going to lower that price of the company, whatever they're looking to sell it for, which is another reason why I think Nick Khan was brought in, to help position and get everything right and position them to be sold. Get them looking as attractive as possible to your Amazons, to your Disneys, to your whatever the fuck, whoever's going to buy them, McDonald's. And I think that's what he was put there to do. So Vince's connection with this is only going to, I think, harm that. Maybe Vince wants to try to hang on until they sell so he can kind of leave on his own terms type of thing, or maybe he's like, all right, I'll resign, but I want this company sold within a year. So when we look back on history, you can associate my leaving with the company being sold, and it's not like I was forced. I think that's maybe another, another possibility in Vince's mind. Like I mentioned when the first allegation or the first Wall Street Journal story broke, I said maybe Vince realizes deep down in his heart of hearts that he knows this is going to be it for him, and he's going to try to get out on TV as many times as possible. Because if Vince McMahon does resign, if that winds up happening, does he, and I'm asking you guys this, does he ever step foot in a WWE ring again? Can they just bring him in for appearances once everything blows over? I mean, even the Ric Flair shit, which is pretty damning stuff as well from the dark side of the ring. I mean, they've put Ric Flair's woo back into the intro, back into the signature intro. Wouldn't be surprised either if WWE or WWE wrestlers wish Ric Flair well before his last match. Since he seems to be in there, Ric Flair is ever ridiculous on social media. But he thanked Vince McMahon and WWE for restoring his livelihood because they put the woo back in. He's a really hard guy to like, that Ric Flair, I'll tell you. Really hard guy to like. So, in the end, I think we could very well be seeing the end of Vince McMahon in the WWE. And in the end, I think that's perfectly fine. I'm ready for it as an adult. I'm I've made my peace with it. I'm ready to accept it. I'm ready to see it happen. I'm ready to move forward with this company because, like I said, I cover wrestling for a portion of my living, and I'm getting to the point where I do not want to watch Raw or SmackDown literally at all. I'd rather read the results. I'd rather watch Twitter. I'd rather watch the YouTube highlights. And none of that can change until just shit changes at the creative top. And right now, the creative top is Vince McMahon. He's also at the corporate top. And all the trouble he's getting into on the corporate side could remove him from the company, essentially removing him from creative as well. That I think could start improving things in the future. Yes, you still got Bruce. Yes, you still got Kevin Dunn. And you probably have a few other yes men and women surrounding them that also have Vince's booking philosophy and his style and his overall just template already in their mind. So like I said, for if fans think that Vince McMahon resigning on a Friday is going to mean that Monday Night Raw is good, you are sorely mistaken. I think this is going to take time. Just like with AEW, I said this takes time. You know, all the haters and stuff, you know, the company's been around for 1 year and they start ragging on a TV rating or something. I'm like, just give them time. They're brand new. They're going to have some hiccups and some speed bumps and, you know, have to grow and do stuff. Plus you got a pandemic that's going to completely wipe them out. Just give them some time. Shit doesn't happen overnight. 3 years later, look at that talent roster in AEW compared to day one. Take that two rosters and put them side by side. You're going to go, holy shit, a lot can change in 3 years. So same with this. If Vince is removed, I think it's going to be status quo for a little while and then gradual improvements as we go to where maybe WWE can find their way back to the promised land. Last time we had competition with two companies going at it, it made both companies way better, and it really made things wonderful for the fans. So I think you could potentially see improvements in the WWE, but they're going to be slow improvements because you got Mr. Camera Cut Happy Kevin Dunn back there in that trailer until somebody physically removes that little fucking beaver from his position. I don't think WWE is going to really get any better, you know, from that production side or, you know, how they like to, you know, showcase talent in certain ways. A lot of the little stuff that I complain about a lot on TV that I think is a waste of time. And why'd they have to even do that? And, you know, why does every single woman wrestler have to come out, stop, do their routine, and then go to the ring? Can anybody do anything else that's original at all? Or does every entrance need to be the same, need to be done the same, shot the same, that type of stuff? There's no, you know, there's no feeling of you're watching a unique show. I can't tell the difference from one Raw and SmackDown to the next, where I've talked many times about AEW switching up their venues a lot to where you actually can, even though they have the overall same set every week for Dynamite, you can tell that they're in a different arena. And it is set up slightly different from week to week. And sometimes those little tiny subtle things will make all the difference in the world to a wrestling fan like me or you guys or somebody that's been watching forever. And WWE's cookie cutter shows, each one identical to the one before it, you know, that's how you water your shit down. That's how your shit gets stale. That's how you lose the audience's interest. If your interest is 5-year-olds, then they don't remember what the fuck they did yesterday, so it's not going to matter to them. They'll dance around to Bianca Belair's entrance every time. But for fans that actually still love and appreciate pro wrestling and just want good storylines and compelling angles, if you just give me a couple of those in WWE, I'll be happy. And, you know, they struggle to even give us that. Right now, probably the one I'm looking forward to the most, Pat McAfee and Baron Corbin. Honestly. Brock and Roman, I defended the WrestleMania match. It's hard for me to defend this one. And since they are set up in a last man standing match, I do think that they're positioning possibly for a cash-in, which would suck if Theory walks out of SummerSlam as champion. So, who knows what the next few weeks will bring, but I think it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. And like I said, if we don't hear anything from Vince McMahon in terms of what his future is in the next couple of weeks, I think look for after SummerSlam. I really think that after SummerSlam comes and goes, maybe we get some sort of a conclusion, or maybe we get some sort of, maybe not a conclusion, but some sort of a change. Because you got to also start thinking about it's time to start promoting WrestleMania, which is going to be here in LA. And I would love for The Rock to be a part of this. I would love for The Rock to go into the Hall of Fame. Is this something The Rock is going to want to do? Vince, I love you, but goddamn, keep it in your pants. I don't want to make a WWE appearance right now with all of the bad publicity going on. So Vince wants to preserve WrestleMania. Because I'm going to be there. I want to see a good WrestleMania. I don't want to see a shitty one because no big stars are going to work the event because of Vince. So Vince just gets the hell out of Dodge right after SummerSlam, right before WrestleMania tickets go on sale, which I believe is sometime in August for the pre-sale. Gets out of there, and then WWE can negotiate with The Rock. I do believe Vince did make or is making a special trip to go visit John Cena. So maybe he's going to try to get him into a WrestleMania match and ink him down for something next year. You know, or bringing The Rock in like we've heard The Rock and Roman Reigns rumors and all that stuff. And I think Roman's ripe for a title change at SummerSlam. It feels like he's not working much. So, you know, if he survives and he walks out of SummerSlam surviving Brock and surviving a Theory cash-in, and he still has those 2 titles, you know, well, I mean, is he just going to hold the belts, both of them, all the way until WrestleMania next year to face The Rock, if The Rock even comes in? I don't even know what they're going to do at SoFi Stadium next year if all of this Vince stuff is still looming and still hanging over their heads. I don't want to see Cody. And what if Theory wins at SummerSlam and holds the title until WrestleMania, and then Cody wins a Rumble and beats him? That would be way too predictable. But you got to think about that too. You know, WrestleMania next year. You know, I'm sure Vince still has personal relationships with Rock and Cena and all of that stuff. But, you know, Rock and Cena have publicity teams. And they have people that say, stay away from WWE right now. Not a good idea. You know, and that Vince's scandal could affect a lot of things. Talent, money, TV negotiations, ticket sales, talent signings, you know, big stars coming in. Didn't stop Logan Paul, but if you are a celebrity who WWE wants, they're like, I'm not coming in right now with Vince going crazy. So all that stuff could have an effect on so many different parts of WWE. That's the important thing. It has lots of effect on the corporate side of things, has effect on the financial side, and on the creative and talent side as well. This is just a slash through WWE's entire machine here. And the more Vince hangs on and says fuck him and fights like hell, the more damage he's doing to the company he works so hard to build. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Valerie Loretta. She was a MMA gal, right? Didn't know much about her, but she seems to be coming in with a lot of press, and she seems happy to be there. Saw her in some interview she put over Charlotte. Be interesting to see what they do with her. She won't be Valerie Loretta. She will be Valencia Lemonade, because that's what they'll call her. Sam, you think Logan Paul is a good guy? Did I say that? No. By the way, we should mention the WWE tag team titles, women's tag team titles, when it comes to WWE just having no fucking idea what they're doing with their booking and their creativity. You know, those titles might not even be resurrected. I say just dump them. Don't even need them. Company has no use for the women's tag team titles, because not that they don't have talent there that can hold them and do a good job with them, is because they don't know how to book tag team titles. And nothing to do with the talent. Scott D'Amore to own WWE. Okay. Kevin Nash. I like some of these ideas for new owners of WWE. Bischoff buying WWE. No, WWE isn't selling to somebody like that. They're selling to a big company. They're probably gonna turn into what WCW used to be, and that's kind of a scary thought, you know, when they were owned by the Time Warner and all that shit, and then all of a sudden you have another entity owning the wrestling part of it, and then if they decide they don't want to own it anymore, they don't care about it, bad people can be put in charge, and it can just be a clusterfuck. And we heard so much of that. It's very detailed in wrestling history what a cluster WCW was back in the day because of that, because there really wasn't one guy there running things. And if WWE winds up selling, you know, I don't know what kind of power Triple H and Stephanie and Nick Khan will retain if and when that eventually happens. So the next few years, I think the next few weeks are going to be really interesting, and the next few years are going to be very interesting as well, because in 5 years, Vince is going to be 81, and who knows where he'll be, if he'll be with us, what he'll be doing. You know, who knows? Maybe he resigns from WWE for 2 years and then comes back. I don't fucking know. I don't know how any of this is going to go. But like I said, my heart of hearts, my instinct, me reading up and researching and finding out what I can about this and about these, you know, these corporate positions and what you can and what you cannot do, it really seems pretty fucking clear that there's not going to be a way around this for Vince. But I could be proven wrong. We will find out. Anyway, I have got to head off to work, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of here now. Like I said, no episode tomorrow. It's Friday. Nothing's going on. SmackDown's going on. I ain't going to watch that. But we will be back up here on Saturday, regular time, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific for the Winged Eagle. And we have got a shit ton of news to get into. The Sasha Banks and Naomi stuff, the WWE TV 14 stuff. We got to talk about Dynamite and Raw and SummerSlam preview, and all that stuff is coming up on Saturday, so stay tuned. And like I said, the watch along to SummerSlam 1992 for Sunday is down in the description. The link is, so go down there and click it. Hopefully, I did not miss anybody's chats that were super. I think I got everybody's, but a lot of times, see, I'm glad I went back up here. We're not leaving yet. We're not leaving yet because I got supers that I missed. I knew I should have double-checked this. Let me knock out at least 2, maybe another one. Yeah, Chris Miner, I got yours with the Vince and Trish, but I missed David Deacon Little. Appreciate that $2 you sent earlier. What if Shawn Michaels spoke up? Just saying. Bro, there were the rumors. That's for sure. I'm not going to say that the rumors didn't exist because they did. Vince and Shawn had an interesting relationship. But another thing you got to think about is that this initial report by the Wall Street Journal, there is somebody that leaked that, and that's kind of interesting. It's juicy good stuff. Daniel Mendiola, good to see you again, DM23. Glad you're back. Thank you for that $5. Come down to Hollywood to see my band play out. First show, 6 years. Damn. When? Come down to Hollywood tonight? I got to work tonight. But hey, if you're playing and jamming and rocking out during WrestleMania weekend, then we're talking. Daniel, we might see you there, man. Hopefully I did not miss anybody else. I will go into my my analytics there and double check if there's any other supers that I did miss. I will make sure I knock those out on Saturday, but I do believe I got them all. I want to thank you guys for being here. Thanks for joining me on a very random Thursday afternoon, but since there was so much to discuss and so many opinions to give about Vince McMahon, there was no way I was going to be able to fit this into Saturday's podcast in addition to everything else I got to talk about. And on top of that, I missed you guys and wanted to come up here and do a stream. So you guys have a great rest of your Thursday afternoon. I will actually post this audio and push it out to the podcast feed, but unfortunately, I won't get a chance to do that for a few more hours. I'm not going to have time before I leave for work to get that done. But if you want to listen to the audio, it will be posted later tonight, and you can download it over on the website no later than midnight tonight. So just check back if you're one of those people who likes to listen. Thanks again, guys, for being here. I will catch you all on Saturday for the Winged Eagle, and should be a good one. Y'all have a good Thursday.